Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Arjuna Vacha. Text 1. Evam shatata yukta ye bhaktastam payupashate chechapushkaram bhaktam teshang te jugavittamaha.
Hare Krishna everyone. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotion service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested?
Text 2. Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Maya Vishramana Yemang Nitya Yukta Upashate Shraddhaya Parayopeta Stame Yukta Tamamataha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be most perfect.
Text 3 and 4. Ye tam takshara nidesha mabhaktam payupashate sharbat gam chintancha kuthastha machalam dhruvam shanindriyam gindriyo grama sharbat shamabhuthayah ye te prapnupanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha.
But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons, engaged in the welfare of all, at last achieve me.
Text 5. Klesho hi dikataraste yamam bhakta shakta chetasham abbhakta hi gatir dukkam deho bhapate.
For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied.
Text 6 and 7. Ye tu sarvani karmani mayi shangnashamat paraha aninnaivo yogena mangdhayanta upashate teshamaham samurdhata mittu samsara shagarat bhavami cha chirat partha Maya Beshitachitasham.
But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotion service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prudha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
Text 8. Mayeva manadhashasha mayi buddhing niveshaya niboshashi mayeva ato urdham shanangshaya.
Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt.
Text 9. Adho chittang samadhatung nashlokashi mayi stiram abhashu yogena tata mapi chantu dhananjaya.
My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me.
Text 10. Abhasheho parsamartha shamartha hoshi matkarma paramam bhava madarthamopi karmani kurvan siddhim vasasi.
If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage.
Text 11. Athaidat Shakti Hoshi Kurtam Guma Madyoga Slitaha Sharvakarma Phalatagam Tatha Kuru Jatatpanam.
If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated.
Text 12. Shreyo hi ganam bhashat gyanan dhayang visheshate dhyanat karma phala stagachanti nirantaram.
If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind.
Text 13 and 14. Adyeshta Sarvabhutanang Maitre Karuna Evacha Nirmamo Nirahankara Shama Dukkha Shukoshkame Shantashta Shatatang Yogi Jatatma Drida Nishaya Mayorpita Manarbuddhi Yume Bhakta Shame Priyaha.
One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who doesn't think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant and always satisfied, self-controlled and engaged in devotion service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me.
Text 15. Yashmanno dijate loko lokanno dijate chajaha harshamasha bhayote gui mukto josho me priyaha.
He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me.
Text 16. Anapeksha shuchi daksha udashina gata bataha sharbaramba parityagi yo me bhakta shame priyaha.
My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me.
Text 17. Yona hishati na deshti na shachati na kangshati shuva parityagi bhakti manja yashame priyaha.
One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me.
Text 18 and 19. Shamashatra chame mitra tatha manapanaya shitoshna sukha dukkeshu shamo shanga vivarjitaha tullo nindastatoi monoi santushto yena kenachit aniketa stira mukti Bhaktiman me priyo naraha.
One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotion service. Such a person is very dear to me.
20. Ye tu dharma mitang midang yatakta payupashate shraddha dhana mat parama bhaktaste steho tibo me priyaha.
Those who follow this impossible part of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Hare Krishna. Please excuse me for any mistakes.
ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीभगवद्गीतासूपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्ण अर्जुन संवादे भक्तियोगो नाम द्वादशोऽध्याय हरि ओम तत्सत् हरे कृष्णा प्लीज accept my mistake. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Palaka Devi, Pataji. And also, I think it was Venkat Prabhu. Thank you. Both of you recited. Of course, Palaka Mataji, your Sanskrit is so crystal clear, so nice, very nice. And Venkat Prabhu, thank you very much as well. My name is Krishna Govinda. And I'm just going to host you for today's program. And actually, today's program or today's chat is actually going to be a summary of the Gita, which was done already yesterday. But today we're going to talk about the summary based on the Mahatmaya Gita summary, and I'll explain that in a minute. I'll just check if I can share the screen. Okay, yeah, I can share the screen. So today also what I wanted to ask everybody, because we've been so kindly listening to all these a verse a day of the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 12. Many of you are regulars. So I want to sort of ask you to all participate as well. We're going to ask you to all select a particular verse that was read earlier by Palika Mataji and Venkat Prabhu. See a particular verse that actually you can feel connected to, or you have some reflection or realization. You know, even if it's just one word, two word, it's quite amazing what can be achieved. Yes. So thank you so much. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just speak about the Gita Mahatmaya. So what is the Gita Mahatmaya? We have the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the Gita Mahatmaya is actually for the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. There's reflections, there's stories, there's pastimes, there's Leela on exactly the benefits of reading that particular chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's so amazing. Just like the way you have an Ekadashi, which falls on every fortnight, there's a particular story, usually a story related to a pastime with Krishna, with Lord Vishnu. And when it's actually spoken, recited, and heard on a constant level on that particular day, it gains you that spiritual connection to the Supreme Lord, to Krishna. Of course, it also mentions about one who reads this particular pastime, just like in the Krishna Leela book. It mentions many times, Prabhupada mentions in a summary, that anyone who reads this particular chapter or the story, the pastime, the Leela of Krishna, perhaps the Damodar Leela, perhaps Krishna protecting the devotees, the gopas, from the demons that have been infested or harvesting the whole of Vrindavan, trying to kill Krishna and Balaram, but how Krishna protects them. When you read these stories, it actually tells you that it actually frees you from all this material distress of birth, old age, and disease, and frees you into a place of liberation. So Mahamaya is also a story of one particular story for each chapter. The first 6 chapters are actually a dialogue between Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi Devi. And chapter 7 to 18 is actually a dialogue between Lord Shiva and Parvati. Now, you may wonder, why is there 18 chapters? Or in particular, the 6 chapters that are the middle section are the sections that's actually leading to the supreme or devotion itself to Krishna. Just like in a sandwich, you have the upper layer and you have the bottom layer, but the portion in the middle is the most, which is the filling, which is actually give you all the nutritions, has all the different ingredients that actually makes the sandwich more tasty. So the first 6 chapters is like an introduction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the next 6 chapters are actually describing about the personality of the Supreme Lord, his qualities, his qualifications, the absolute truth, the realizations, reflections on the qualities of being a devotee, and how you can attain to that highest level. And of course, the final 6 chapters is like almost like a summary of the first 12 chapters, but it goes into deeper subjects like the goodness, passion, and ignorance. Talks about the divine qualities, the demoniac qualities itself. Now, when Srila Prabhupada translated this particular book, he actually gave English titles to these chapters. Now, many of these chapters, also when you look at some other books within the translation of the Bhagavad Gita, they actually have the Sanskrit words for these particular chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 onwards. What it is, chapter 1 is actually discussing about the observing of the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That's when Arjuna is actually coming in front of the battlefield. He's feeling distressed. He's actually seeing that he's going to be fighting against his own kinsman, his great grandfather Bhishma Dev, his guru Dronacharya, and he's actually perplexed and he's actually feeling all weak. He's actually trembling. His Gandiva bow is actually falling and slipping from his hand. He's shivering. He becomes very, very compassionate and does not want to fight. So chapter 1, in some of the translation of chapter 1 is actually Vishada Yoga. So I know Prabhupada's actually translated this in a way so we Westerners could actually understand. So chapter 1, observing the armies of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, is referred to Vishada Yoga. Chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, that's actually talking about the soul, the super soul, the Paramatma. What is the purpose of the soul's migration? How does it go about the migration? It gives you a more depth about self-realization through the study, analytical study of the soul. And that is also summarized as Sankhya Yoga. So who spoke the Sankhya Yoga? Does anybody know? I just mute somebody. Is muted?
Shankaracharya.
Kapila Bhagwan?
Kapila Bhagwan, yeah.
Kapila.
Yeah, that's right. Kapila is Shakti Aveshavata. He actually spoke there's a particular book, The Teachings of Kapila Dev. He actually spoke about the analytical study of the soul, the Paramatma within the heart of every living entities. Now, chapter 3 is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga describes about how you surrender your fruitive activities to serving Krishna himself. You may not be able to completely devote yourself in devotional service, but these are the stepping stones to allow you to free your mind, your body into a higher sort of self-realization stage. So chapter 3 is still Karma Yoga. Chapter 4 is transcendental knowledge. Chapter 4 talks more specifically about who you are, why you are in this particular material world, understanding the difference between the Supreme Lord and yourself. Now, does anybody know what the translation for chapter 4 is in Sanskrit? It's Jnana Yoga.
Jnana Yoga.
Yeah, well done, Palika Mataji. Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is actually actually understanding. It's like self-realized knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, of course, when you do read the Bhagavad Gita, it actually tells you the stages of the spiritual knowledge itself. And what it is, sometimes we actually are put in a situation where we do want to understand about the Supreme Lord, but it may not be always possible. So chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, is a description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and also understanding how you get that transcendental knowledge to the spiritual master. Just try and approach a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. Because the self-realized soul has seen the truth, he can impart this spiritual knowledge unto you. Yeah. Now, chapter 5 is Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. The Sanskrit word for that is Karma Vairagya Yoga. Karma Vairagya means utilizing anything that you have for serving Krishna. You may have a car, you may have some opulent home, you may have any particular material objects that you may have, even yourself, your own body, you can use it in the service of Krishna. That's called Vairagya. Chapter 5 is referred to Karma Vairagya Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And Krishna in this particular chapter, he explains to Arjuna how that although you may have all these desires to be materialistic, but try and give up all that materialistic activities and give it and offer it as a reward to the Supreme Lord. Chapter 6 is actually it's got a different name here than another sort of Bhagavad Gita. Although Srila Prabhupada calls it Jnana Yoga, sometimes it's referred as Abhyasa Yoga. Now, Jnana Yoga, just to remind myself, just 1 minute. Oh, actually, my forgiveness. I should have recited my prayers at the beginning. Please forgive me. If it's okay with all of you, I'll just say my invocation prayers. Om Gyana Timrandasya Gyana Jana Shalakaya Gacharamanatam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatat Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichara Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shiva Shikamitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sata Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Manchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Charu Swami Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvashesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai, please accept my humble obeisances. O glory to Srila Prabhupada, O glory to Guru Maharaj. With the kind blessings, may I speak on the summary of the chapter 12, devotional service and the Bhagavad Gita. Kindly ask for your blessings too. Please forgive me, I forgot to recite the invocation prayers. Normally we recite a verse for each day. And on this occasion, I blatantly started off speaking without saying my prayers to our spiritual masters. So just going back, chapter 6, Jnana Yoga. In another particular Bhagavad Gita, it's called Abhyasa Yoga. So chapter 6, Jnana Yoga, actually refers to Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is actually practicing of yoga postures, meditation, controlling the mind, controlling the senses. And of course, when you try to do that, it is very difficult, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for one who can control the mind is the best of friends, but for one who fails to do so, the mind is the greatest enemy. And Arjuna is also saying, "What, my dear Lord, for the mind is turbulent, obstinate, and very strong and very difficult to control. It's far easier to control the wind than to control the mind." But of course, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, you have to practice, constant practice. Wherever your mind wanders due to its flickering nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So Jnana Yoga is actually Ashtanga Yoga, practicing yoga postures, controlling the mind, meditating on the Supreme Lord within the core of your heart as well, the Paramatma in your heart. Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. This is referred to as Paramahamsa Vijnana Yoga. Vijnana, you've got jnana, which is knowledge of the Supreme Lord, but Vijnana is absolute knowledge of the Supreme Lord. So this is knowledge of the absolute. Raja Vidya is actually the most important knowledge. You know, the king of all knowledge is a confidential knowledge too, which comes on later on as well. Chapter 8 is attaining the Supreme. Chapter 8 is also referred to as Akshara Parabrahman Yoga. Chapter 8 is referring to attaining the Supreme by remembering Lord Krishna in devotion through one's life, throughout one's life, and especially at the time of death. Because as you know, we don't know exactly when we're going to die. For every birth, there is certainly death, and after death, he's certainly coming. He has another birth again, and it actually, what Krishna mentions in this, whatever state of being one remembers at that time of death, that state you will attain in your previous life. And you remember some of the examples that we gave in previous chat classes. Like we had Jad Bharat, he was thinking of a deer at the time of his death, but in his next life, he got a birth of a deer. And then after that, he got Jad Bharat. Then eventually he went back to the Supreme Lord. And even like the story of Ajamil, he was very much intoxicated and later in his life. But when he called out Narayan, the son of the name of his son, at the time of his death, the Yamadutas were about to take him away to the hellish planets because of the name Narayan is no different from the Supreme Lord. The Vishnu Dutas actually saved him, and he actually came to his senses, and he actually realized the mistake he made by indulging in sense gratification, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, and he refrained from all that and became a pure Brahmin once again. And then at the time of death, he was able to be taken to back to the spiritual world by the Vishnu Dutas. Many other wonderful stories as well within the Bhagavatam, where you actually think of somebody, I think, can't remember the particular king's name, if anybody remembers. Forgotten the name from the top of my head, but he was very much in love with his dear wife, his queen. The king was very much affectionate, and when she passed away, he was lamenting so much, and instead of thinking about surrendering everything, his wealth, his opulence, his life, and renounce himself from material worldly life and go into the
Chitraketu's
forest.
son. Chitraketu's
There was another Mataji, I think there was another name I was thinking of, Pachanidhi or something. Pachanidhi, Pachanabi. He actually, when he passed away, he got the life of a woman because he was lamenting so much because of his thinking of his wife, Nabi, I think it is. But basically, it's like a wonderful story within the Shama Bhagavatam. It actually explains sometimes when you have this attachment for other material welfare, that same body you will have in your next life. So it's important that we focus our life on Krishna. And why? Because Krishna guarantees for one who at the time of death thinks of me alone, he is sure to have my nature. Of this, there is no doubt. So we have to remember Krishna constantly. Chapter 8, attaining the supreme. The next one is chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. And chapter 9 is sometimes referred to as Raja Vidya, Guya Vidya. There's a particular small book by Srila Prabhupada. He talks about this king of knowledge, the most confidential knowledge, and is revealing this knowledge to Arjuna because Arjuna is a confidential friend of the Supreme Lord. And we have been given this that same confidential knowledge that we could actually understand and become more self-realized in our spiritual quest for the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So the most confidential knowledge is actually attaining the object of the Supreme Lord as worship. The soul is eternally related to him through transcendental devotional service bhakti. By reviving one's pure devotionals, one returns to Krishna in the spiritual realm. Okay, and that's the most confidential knowledge. Chapter 10 is the opulence of the absolute. Chapter 10 is referred to as Vibhuti Vistara Yoga. So chapter 10, this is a wondrous phenomena. It actually is showing the power, the beauty, grandeur of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although it's shown from a material aspect, but it's actually showing you that it's all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Know that of all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creation springs but from a spark of my splendor. So can you imagine so beautiful? Any food that we observe is so beautiful. all the flowers that we see, they look so beautiful and have so much different fragrances, the material elements, the mighty rivers, the material elements, earth, water, fire, ether. We see the beautiful mountains like the Himalayas. It gives description about this different objects in the material world, but it's actually like a reflection of the Supreme Lord. It's just a very minor spark of his splendor itself. So you can imagine how amazing the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in his full splendor, in his six opulences, strength, fame, beauty, opulence, renunciation, and wisdom. The next one, chapter 11, is the universal form. So universal form is also referred as Vishvarupa, which is the universal form of the Supreme Lord, Darshan Yoga. So this is the one chapter before devotional service where Arjuna is asking Krishna, my dear Lord, please let me see you in this in your original form as the universal form. So of course, Arjuna doesn't have divine eyes. So Krishna says, you will not be able to see through your eyes because, of course, it's just like seeing the sun. It's not possible to actually see anything at all. You need sun element to protect yourself from being blinded by looking at the sun too long. So Krishna gives that spiritual vision to Arjuna and is able to see this amazing form of the Supreme Lord, this very fearful form of the Lord, yet also attractive. He sees all the army being devoured to death in this the mouth of Lord Vishnu in his universal form. He sees the past, the present, the future. He sees all the demigods. He sees the whole material opulence. And of course, he sees to some level the spiritual opulence as well. And Krishna is explaining in this particular sort of chapter, time I am, the destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy everyone. Everyone in this world, in this battle, will be destroyed except for you, Arjuna, referring to the Pandavas. So Krishna is already explaining to you, to Arjuna, that, everyone from both sides of the armies are going to be slain. Only those with divine qualities or divine sort of connection to the Supreme Lord is going to be protected. So in this case, it's the Pandavas who are actually victorious and become very successful in this battle of Kurukshetra. So this is a very particular, beautiful chapter. It's describing the glorious and the beautiful form of the universe, of the universal form, the Vishvarupa Darshan form. And chapter 12, devotional service, is of course, what's the popular word we always use for devotional service in Sanskrit?
Bhakti Yoga.
Bhakti Yoga. Thank you very much, Prashangni Mataji. I think that was. So this is actually the actual culmination or the penultimate, ultimate stage in our devotional practice. Krishna is actually explaining the qualities of a devotee, what kind of quality you should be in order to attain the Supreme Lord. And he talks about the different types of qualities. And later on, we're going to ask a question on which particular verse they like from that particular chapter 12. Chapter 12, I'll just give you a little summary. Chapter 12, Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service to the Lord, is the highest and most expedient means for attaining pure love for Krishna, which is the highest end of spiritual existence. Those who follow this supreme path develop divine qualities. So here, of course, Krishna tells about the qualities of each individual person in order to become self-realized. And later on, we'll give a bit more explanation on that particular chapter 12 through your realizations. So now I'm just going to quickly share you Gita Padmaya. So I'm just going to give you a quick summary of Gita Padmaya. Rather than me explaining it, if it's all right with your permission, I'll explain it through His Holiness Mahanidhi Swami. I hope you can all see that screen.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good.
Yes, you can see.
Okay. To glorify the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Vishnu said, O Lakshmi Devi, I myself have personally manifested in the form of Bhagavad Gita. It is my Murti form, an intelligent person who daily recites one chapter one shloka, a half or a quarter shloka will attain Vaikuntha. Can you imagine that? That's why Srila Prabhupada actually mentions, even if they read one word, a quarter of a shloka, they are able to attain liberation to Vaikuntha. After saying this, Bhagavan Sri Vishnu spoke the glories of Bhagavad Gita's first chapter to his dearly beloved Sri Lakshmi Devi. Then Sri Shivaji narrated the glories of reading, hearing, or chanting chapters 6 through 18 to his most beautiful Parvati Devi. In closing his narration, Sri Shivaji gave the Shruti Phala verse of blessings. Sri Shivaji said, hearing or studying the Gita Mahatmay quickly destroys all one's sins. One who faithfully remembers this discourse will attain the benefits of all kinds of yajnas, a punya karma. In addition, one will enjoy all worldly pleasures and then go to Vaikuntha. Shri Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa recorded this great Mahatmya in the Padma Purana. My teacher recommended reciting the Gita Mahatmya after reaching the Bhagavad Gita on Gita Jayanti. Thus we present it here for the benefit of all. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. So this, for each particular chapter, there's a beautiful Leela that gives you a story behind each chapter of the Bhagavad Gita itself and the benefits of reading that chapter. So today's chapter 12 is devotional service, Bhakti Yoga. So we're going to read that particular chapter. Okay. Does anybody want to read this at all? Would anybody like to read chapter 12, the glories of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita from the Padma Purana?
I
Hare
tried.
Krishna.
Oh, sorry.
Can I
Okay.
read?
Okay, sure. Palika, would you read to a particular passage? Then I'll
Ah.
ask Krishnangi Mataji. Yeah, Palika Mataji, you can start.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shall I start from Lord Shiva say?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Lord Shiva said, I will recite the wonderful glories of the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita before you, dear Parvati. In the south, there is an important holy place by the name of Kolhapur, where the temple of the Lord's divine consort Mahalakshmi is situated. Mahalakshmi is continuously worshipped by all the demigods. That place is the fulfiller of all desires. Rudra Yoga is also Rudragaya is also situated there. One day, one young prince arrived there. His body was the color of gold. His eyes were very beautiful. His shoulders were very strong and his chest was broad. His arms were long and strong. Shall I stop there?
No, you can carry on, Mataji, because there's quite a lot. And then Krishangi Mataji can read. I'll tell you when to stop here.
Okay, thank you. When he arrived in Kolhapur, he first went to the lake known as Manika's birth, where he took bath and offered worship to his
Manikantha Tirtha.
Manikantha Tirtha, where he took bath and offered worship to his ancestors. And then he went to the temple of Mahalakshmi, where he offered his obeisances and then started to pray, O Devi, whose heart, O Devi, whose heart is full of mercy, who is worshipped throughout the three worlds and is the giver of all fortune and mother of creation. All glories to you, all shelter of all living entities, O fulfill of all desires. You are the wonderful energy of Lord Achyuta, who is maintaining the three worlds. You are the supreme goddess, O protector of all the devotees. All glories to you, O Devi. It is you who fulfill the desires of devotees, and it is you who engages them in the service of Lord Achyuta. You are eternal and deliverer of all fallen souls. All glories to you, O Devi, for the welfare and protection of the three worlds. you take no on many forms such as Ambika, Brahmi, Vaishnavi, Mahashari, Dharihi, Mahalakshmi, Nara, Narasimhi, Indri, Kumari, Chandrika, Lakshmi, Savitri, Chandrakala, Rohini, Parameshwari, all glories to you, whose glories are unlimited. Kindly be merciful upon me. When Mahalakshmi heard those prayers, she became very pleased and said to the prince, "O prince, I am very happy with you. Please request any benediction according to your heart's desire from me." That prince said, "O mother of the three worlds, my father, King
Brahadrat.
Brotherati.
Brahadatri was performing the famous sacrifice known as Ashwamedha. But before having completed that yagna, he dies due to disease. And therefore, I was able to complete that Ashwamedha yagna. Someone stole the horses, and that had traveled all over the world and had been purified for sacrifice in that Ashwamedha. I sent the person in all direction in search of that horse, but they were unable to find it. Then I took permission from the priest to come and pray for your health. And if you are pleased with me, then kindly let me know how I can get back that horse and complete the fire sacrifice and thus fulfill my father's desire.
Thank you so much. So now, if I could
Thank you very
just
much.
if I could just ask Krishnagi Mataji to read, I'll just scroll down.
Okay.
From Mahalakshmi said, yeah?
Okay. Mahalakshmi said, "O noble prince, by the gate of my temple on one highly elevated Brahman lives, who is known by the name of Siddha Samadhi. He will be able to fulfill your desire." When the prince heard these words of Mahalakshmi, he went to the place where Siddha Samadhi lived and offered obeisances to him. After having offered obeisances, he took before Siddha Samadhi silently. He stood before Siddha Samadhi silently with folded hands. Siddha Samadhi then said, "You have been sent here by Mother Mahalakshmi, so I will fulfill your desire." Then chanting some mantra, Siddha Samadhi brought all of the demigods before him. The prince at that time saw all of the demigods standing before Siddha Samadhi, awaiting his instructions. Then Siddha Samadhi said to those demigods, "O Devs, this prince's horse, which he had kept ready for his sacrifice, was stolen at night by Lord Indra. Kindly bring that horse back now." Immediately those demigods brought that horse before him, after which Siddha Samadhi dismissed them. When the prince saw all these wonderful happenings, he fell at the feet of Siddha Samadhi and inquired from him, "How have you attained such power, which I have not seen or heard of anyone else possessing? O great sage, kindly hear my request. My father, King Brihadrathi, while beginning the Ashwamedh sacrifice, died unexpectedly, and thus I kept his body in pure boiled oil. Kindly, if you desire, please bring him back to life." Hearing this, Siddha Samadhi gave a little chuckle and said, "Let us go to that place where we have kept your father's body." When they reached that place, Siddha Samadhi took some water in his hand, and while chanting some mantras, he sprinkled the water onto the head of the dead body of the king Brihadrathi. As soon as that water touched his head, the king sat up and inquired from Siddha Samadhi, "O great devotee, who are you?" The prince immediately informed his father of all the events which had taken place. When the king heard that narration, he again and again offered his obeisances to Siddha Samadhi and inquired from him what austerities he had performed to attain such divine powers. Hearing the king's inquiries, Siddha Samadhi replied, "My dear King Brihadrathi, daily recite the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita." Hearing those words of that great devotee, the king learned from Siddha Samadhi the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In the course of time, both the king and his son attained the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. Many other persons have achieved the topmost goal, devotion to Lord Krishna's lotus feet, by reciting the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita daily. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Krishna
Amen.
Maharaj. Now, can you see how powerful the Bhagavad Gita is? There's just by reciting the 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, this particular sage had the power to actually summon all the demigods. So how many demigods are there? There's 330 million demigods. And he had the power to bring the Ashwamedha horse back again. And as you know, the Bhagavad Gita, when you read the Bhagavad Gita, is considered to be as powerful as performing an Ashwamedha yajna. So as you know, Gita Jayanti recitation is going to take place on the 31st of December at the Bhaktivedanta Manor Haveli. If you are able to come, please do participate so you can recite the whole 700 verses in Sanskrit or English, or at least please do join online. What I was going to just say is, because we're just running short of time, I was going to ask some reflections from any of the devotees who've been participating to say what they like about that particular verse from Bhagavad Gita. Let's see if there's any comments here. If anybody wants to speak. Of the recitations.
One thing I just want to say, I never heard this
Hari
story.
Bol.
First
Oh.
time, I never heard this.
Oh.
Hare Krishna Mataji, if you could mute yourself, Kantaben.
It was very nice to hear this glorification of chapter 12.
Yeah,
Oh.
sure.
Here, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. You see what it is? There's so many wonderful pastimes that we don't know. I mean, even every Ekadashi, as I mentioned, there's a particular background pastime to each of those lila.
Yes.
And then when you actually read it, it actually says when somebody observes Ekadashi on that particular day, it's considered to be like become the wealthiest person, become the most opulent person or strongest person. But of course, we just want to become devotees of the Lord. Thank you so much, Palika Mataji. Is there a particular verse that you'd like to share from chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita that's really touching to you?
Krishna
Anybody?
spoke that, that if you do this, you are very dear to me, all the time. So he actually helped us to understand what we need to do to please him. All those verses he recited, those are very
Yeah,
dear to me, actually. Those are
yeah,
that means it helps you to really concentrate on those verses and
yeah,
want to follow those instruction of Krishna, and try our best to please Krishna on those verses, to do things what Krishna really likes. I like those.
yeah. Thank you. That's really nice, actually. Induleka Mataji, you've got your hand up. Do you want to say something?
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class.
Are you
Hare
okay
Krishna,
to put your video on, Induleka, if you're not too shy?
I'm sorry, not too shy. I am very far. I'm in Canada and it's lunchtime. I'm a bit busy. That's why I cannot fully participate. So sorry,
Okay.
Prabhuji. Yes, but I will tell you which one I like in chapter 12. I like mostly verse 12. Verse 12 was Sriyohi Jnanam Abhyasaj. That one is, if you cannot practice, if you cannot engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge, so you do meditation. If not this, you do renunciation of the fruit of action, and by renunciation, we get peace of mind. And in this Kali Yuga, we know it's very, very difficult. Arjuna himself said that he can control the wind, but he cannot control the mind. But now, if we think the difference between Arjuna and ourselves, we are nothing. He was a great Mahabhagavata. Still, he could not control his mind. So, and then here Prabhupada in his purport, Prabhupada also said the direct process is not possible for everyone. Therefore, the indirect process is also good. So we can choose whatever suits us, but we have to endeavor, Prabhuji. If we don't endeavor, nothing will happen. So this is the verse that I like. And also if we cannot do anything, just give the fruits to the Lord. Whatever we are doing, we are working, like even we are cooking, we are cleaning, just tell the Lord, I'm doing it for you.
Yeah,
and that will
right.
please the Lord. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Angelica Mataji. That's so true. Because sometimes we think, oh, I don't have the capacity, I don't have wealth, I don't have anything. I'm not a good cook, I'm not a good, but sometimes Krishna sees your endeavor. The word endeavor is so important. So Krishna says in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. So whether it's something very small, like a tiny sparrow, the example of the sparrow is very determined to retrieve his eggs, and Garuda comes as the big sister bird to protect him. But also, in this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution, and the little advancement on this path can protect you from the most dangerous type of fear. Of course, fear comes every day in our life, whether it's a tiny spider, some disease, some health problems, some financial problems. Fears are always of course, a part of our birth, old age, death, disease sort of a scenario. Thank you, Angelica Mataji. Anybody else?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishangi Mataji, yes, please. Would you be able to switch on your video? Are you okay too, Krishangi Mataji?
Yeah. Just, I was taking on verse number 8.
Number 8, okay.
Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of God, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. And when you read the purport, Srila Prabhupada really explains it so nicely. I was touched by it. I thought it really applies to us,
Yeah, that is so wonderful. Yeah, it's just a simple word. Just fix your mind upon me. Our mind is constantly wandering around. As we were saying, it's easier to control the wind than the mind. But even then, that's for somebody powerful. But most of us have hundreds of thousands of thoughts going on in our mind, unnecessary thoughts. But when your mind is completely focused, then you're always thinking of the Supreme Lord. Even the other day, I gave a class and I mentioned about the qualities of a devotee. If somebody has to be clean, somebody has to be pure. But you may not be pure, but if you think of somebody who's very pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, then you systematically become pure yourself. Yeah. Thank you so much, Krishangi Mataji. Anybody else would like to share? Just one or two words. It'd be nice to share a few more.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I would like to add something, if it's okay.
Yes, sure.
In this Gita Mahatmay, the third verse says, one of the verses, like in it says, Maline punchanam punsam jale snanam dine dine sakrit gitam bhasya snanam samsara malanasanam. And it is said that one may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water. But if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water or Bhagavad Gita, for him, the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished.
Yes.
This is another proof also that how Bhagavad Gita is very powerful.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Angelica Mataji. I know we always want to go to the Holy Dham to see the holy places and also become fixed in the qualities, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. We go to the Ganges to bathe, we go to the Yamuna to bathe by the waters of Jagannath Puri. But essentially, sometimes when you actually bathe that nectar through the description of the Bhagavad Gita, the beautiful verses, the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, you're not only purifying yourself externally, internally, your mind, your thoughts, your senses, and everything else comes along with it as well. Yes, thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else would like to share something from chapter 12, a particular verse? Don't be shy. No, everybody's feeling so shy.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yeah, sure.
Pranam, Mamta here. Sorry, my hair.
Very well, Mamta. That's okay.
I think verse 13. I think. Well, let me just get it up. No, 15.
15, yeah.
15. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety is very dear to me. It is so difficult to achieve that balance, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Because we are so reactive all the time, and obviously very much conditioned. So I think he also gives us different stages. If you can't do this, then do this. If you can't do this, then do this. Then slowly you will come to me.
Yeah.
It's quite nice the way how he shows us the path of how, okay, that this is your level now. You do this next thing. And when you attain a little bit of perfection, then you do the next stage. And then a little bit more, then you do the next one. So it is quite nice the way how Krishna explains. Absolutely wonderful. I just wanted to share that one. I know it's very difficult to be equipoised in so many things. We are so reactive, Prabhuji.
Yes, even as devotees, we do get annoyed, we get angry, we get frustrated. Prasadam queues so big, darshan queues so big. But if you just remember that sometimes, somehow or another, we're all individual, living entities, but at the same time, we're all connected on a spiritual level. And we just have to learn to develop patience. Of course, that comes by association with pure devotees, reading the books and also imbibing them. When we went for book distribution today, it's quite amazing when you speak to the Indian people in general. Yes, I have read, I have got one at home. But when you say, have you read it? They said, well, not so much. So we use the emphasis of encouraging them to read it and put them into their practice life as well, So thank you so much. Was that Saroj Mataji?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, yes.
Yes.
For me, it was 13. I just put a
13.
message on chat as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Being kind. For neophyte devotees, we don't have so much knowledge and all that. But we can always be kind, isn't it?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
don't
definitely.
have to be nasty or say harsh words to people, even if they're wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And it's easy because they say the tongue is the most difficult to control. It's the more voracious because, sometimes we say certain things and we regret it. It happens to me. I sort of get angry and say unnecessary words. And I think, oh gosh, why am I saying that? Why don't I say Krishna's name? Why don't I understand Krishna's in their heart too? And actually trying to be living in a life, being a devotee is not easy, but at the same time, it's not difficult. You just have to have complete dedication on the Supreme Lord. But sometimes what happens, those qualities that you see Krishna explaining to Arjuna, these are the qualities of a pure devotee who is actually equipoised both in happiness, distress. He sees no difference between gold or a lump of stone. But of course, sometimes, I think in one of my class, I did mention that sometimes we do get angry. Krishna gets angry, devotees get angry, but when you're directing it in a particular way for serving Krishna, sometimes you have to have passion as well and anger to support yourself. Many of the older generation devotees probably know what the difficulties Bhaktivedanta Manna went through when they were closing. We were angry, we were ready to fight, stand our grounds, act like Kshatriyas, not just like Brahmanas sitting behind or on a, like a cozy lap saying that Krishna will come and save us. But no, Krishna's given you that intelligence. I am the intelligence of man, the ability of man. So you use that intelligence to use certain qualities for the better things. We may be distressed. And sometimes, as Queen Kunti says, yes, these calamities have been happening again and again, but I want these to happen because then I can think of you, my Lord. When we're happy, when we're self-situated, when we have so much wealth, opulence, lots of friends, a lot of, surroundings within us that makes our life comfortable, that we don't have so much time to think about Krishna because we're already self-situated. We think we are, but it's all temporary. When we went door to door in Ealing Road to a lot of the business shops, some were very generous, very kind, gave us nice donations. But many of them were saying, oh, I don't have time. I have the book. Look, it's underneath my counter, but I don't read it at all. But we try and convince them, think about the spiritual benefits that you could bring to your business by just reading one verse every day as a group, as a team with all the staff. Because Krishna is unlimited in many ways. How many millions of Lakshmi Devis there are? Millions and millions for every universal form or any universe. There's a Lakshmi Devi with Lord Narayan. And Lakshmi Devi is a goddess of wealth, goddess of fortune. She provides opulence to everybody. not just wealth, but spiritual wealth as well, spiritual knowledge, prosperity, happiness, peace, and so forth. So I'm just going to share one particular verse. Unless somebody else has got another particular verse that you want to share, I'm just going to quickly share a verse and also just sort of a summary about the qualities of a devotee and what are the benefits of being that devotee. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, verse 68. Okay, the pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. So that gives you a little conclusion about the qualities of a devotee who surrenders unto the Supreme Lord. I'm just going to quickly read, because it's the last day of the winter marathon, Srila Prabhupada's winter marathon. I hope all of you have been able to participate in the winter marathon. If you haven't, there's no harm. Reading the books is just like similar to book distribution, as we mentioned earlier on. If you read a shloka, if you read a verse, half a verse, a quarter of a verse, the benefits are a chance to go back to Vaikuntha. And we all want to go back to Vaikuntha in one way, because nobody likes this cold weather, nobody likes suffering, nobody likes old age, birth, death, disease. We want to be in a place where we can have a spiritual connection with the Supreme Lord. So this is from the book of Family Business by Vaisheshika Prabhu. We're reading from chapter 126, book distribution to the world of academics. As early as 1970, Srila Prabhupada wanted to increase the distribution of books to American universities, and later this distribution would spread to universities all over the world. In a letter to Dinesh Das, dated September 25th, 1970, he wrote, I'm especially pleased that you are taking charge in the Boston area of placing my books and literatures in the local school, college, libraries, and you have already had success with placing all our literatures in the two most important libraries of Harvard University, the Divinity School. When I spoke there some time back, our Krishna consciousness philosophy was very much appreciated, so I think this is an important place for our literatures to be available to the students and faculty. Please go on with this engagement enthusiastically, and Krishna will give you all success in the venture. You are intelligent and hardworking devotee of Krishna, and Krishna will bless you, for this is very fine service which you are rendering unto him. In mid-April of 1974, Rameshwara wrote to Srila Prabhupada the wonderful news of the traveling library party that the BBT had just begun. The team was taking orders for full sets of Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita even before they were published, as standing orders borrowing the strategy of the world-famous Encyclopedia Britannica. The library party was putting books in universities like Princeton and Yale and making contracts with big names in the academic world. The party consisted of Mahabodhi and Ganesham Das, who was later to be known as Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Rameshwara not only conceived of the program but also managed and financed it with money from BBT, Mail Order Department in Los Angeles. Srila Prabhupada replied to Rameshwara May 9, 1974, the report of the BBT Traveling Library party is something new for us, and this is also only the beginning. Please give my heartfelt thanks to the boys, Shriman Mahabodhi Das Brahmachari and Shriman Ganesham Das Brahmachari. These books are specifically meant for the intellectual class of the people in the country, and I have great hope in results of this preaching at the universities. As Rameshwara continued to write to Srila Prabhupada about the library party, Srila Prabhupada's secretary Satsvarupa Das Goswami, while reading Rameshwara's letter to Srila Prabhupada, became his leader with Srila Prabhupada's encouragement. Soon the library party picked up other members and spread to Europe, India, Asia, and then all over the world. As academics around the world received and read Srila Prabhupada's books and gave their favorable reviews, the Krishna consciousness movement gained respect in learned circles throughout the world. It was the first time that Gaudiya Vaishnavism had spread worldwide, and scholars began to recognize what Srila Prabhupada had done. On January 15, 1977, Rameshwara journeyed by train with Srila Prabhupada and a small party of devotees to the Kumbh Mela. Rameshwara shared the same sleeping compartment with Srila Prabhupada, and while they were traveling, Srila Prabhupada asked Rameshwara to read recent reviews of his Gita from scholars. He loved to hear the reviews. Some of the scholars had prayed that he'd go on writing for the sake of humankind. When Parameshwara quoted, "The pen is mightier than the sword," Srila Prabhupada replied, "Yes, it is a revolution. This is what I think, as I write on and revolution of change, the entire course of human history." As the Library Party expanded across America into the communist countries and India, some members of the party were surprised to find that many of the libraries had already purchased the first 3-volume set of the first 3-volume set of first canto Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Prabhupada himself. For example, in 1976, Satyanarayana Das and Vyasaki Das, members of the Asian division of the BBT Library, traveled to Kashmir, a state in the Himalayan region of India. They found out that Srila Prabhupada had gone ahead himself to sell his Bhagavatams. Satyanarayan remembers, while giving Srila Prabhupada a report about our party's distribution of his books to the libraries in India, we told him that we were able to get his books into Muslim institution in Kashmir called Anantnagar. That's amazing, isn't it? To our surprise, this scholar had taken a full order of Srimad Bhagavatams and had appreciated them very much, even though they were Muslims. When Srila Prabhupada heard this, he was visibly enlivened. It was described the circuitous route that we had taken to reach the school, how he had gone through a tunnel high in the Himalayas at an elevation of 4,000 feet. Srila Prabhupada at once corrected us, saying that the tunnel we had gone through was actually at an elevation of 14,000 feet, not 4,000. As it turns out, the signs in front of the tunnel had said it was at an elevation of 4,000 meters, but we had read meters as feet. Astonished that Srila Prabhupada knew this detail about this route to this remote part of Kashmir, we asked him how he knew about the tunnel. He then told us that he had been through the tunnel on a mission to sell his Srimad Bhagavatam. It's amazing. So many years ago, Prabhupada must have gone through that same tunnel which the devotees went, and was trying to sell his Srimad Bhagavatam to different institutions. Vyasaki, and I had also been to Srinagar, the capital of Kashmir. There we had met a man at the prestigious Oriental Library. This man told us that he had purchased a Srimad Bhagavatam directly from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's account of the tunnel and of his going to Kashmir not only confirmed the man's story, but also solved the greater mystery of how this Bhagavatam had come to that part of the country. Srila Prabhupada had personally gone before us to sell his books. Satyanarayana adds, we marveled at how Srila Prabhupada had traveled alone many years before us to these remote places, and we felt fortunate that he was now engaging us in the same mission. We now saw that Srila Prabhupada was the original book distributor. It's amazing, isn't it? Prabhupada was the ultimate book distributor. Actually, he was the original everything. Yes, he was actually the original everything. And we're so fortunate to be part of this wonderful movement of ISKCON. And if we remain sheltered, associated with the devotees of ISKCON, then it's very difficult to go astray. So at that thought, I offer my respects and obeisances to everyone. Thank you for joining in with today's session of chat. Please forgive me for any offenses, and please allow me to continue with my service to Srila Prabhupada and to Guru Maharaj. Thank you. Is there any other comments? Thank you. I say offer my prayers to everyone. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyascha patitara pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
So much, Prabhuji. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a nice class.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Very nice class, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Tomorrow's Christmas Day, so please come to the
Thank
temple.
you for the
There'll be a
wonderful
wonderful darshan of the Lordship, Shri Radha Gokulananda, and of course, Prashadam Seva all day. And if you haven't had a chance to distribute some books, meet me at the bookstall. You know, I can help and support you as well, trying to give one book at least you feel that you're part of this spiritual ISKCON army as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for your encouragement and enthusiasm. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.